Fantasy Rap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Rap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasyrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the follow-up to Week 5. First, we're going to start off with a little bit of news.
Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh got the axe today.
Yep.
Not sure if Aaron Rodgers had any input into that. I had read
Probably a little bit.
Yeah, I had read. Well, I've read that it was all the owner who decided that. Didn't even talk to the GM which is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But I also heard that Robert Saleh was going to terminate the offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett.
Yep.
And it's entirely possible that Rodgers heard about that and then went to the owner and said, "Hey, this is my guy." So they fired Saleh instead. So can't confirm that, but I wouldn't put it past the egomaniacal Aaron Rodgers to get what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
The next bit of so that may impact fantasy a little bit. I'm not sure it will, but apparently they're still interested in trading for Devontae Adams. I've heard that the hardest push for Devontae has been New Orleans.
Oh, I've heard that the Chiefs are.
I've heard the Chiefs aren't interested at all.
Oh, I've heard the other way that the Chiefs were one of the only teams that would give them that second rounder they've been looking for.
Can't afford it.
But
they can't afford him.
Even then, I don't think the Raiders would do it in division.
Right.
So,
well, although for a year or two, and a second from them is the beginning of the third.
Yeah.
So, is it really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
The next piece of news that we have is that Drake May apparently is going to be the starter in New England.
Yep.
So I did not have him on my waiver wire. He may be worth a look. I'm not saying he's worth very much.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost rather have Danny Dimes right now, who is more than likely on the waiver wire because of the way that team has played. But when he's got Wandale and Neighbors,
mm-hmm.
it's actually a decent quarterback play.
Well, it's when you got Malik Neighbors, it makes it pretty easy.
Oh yeah.
And then you got Wandale with his 15 catches, and he's his average depth of target's like 3 yards, so
3 inches.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. He doesn't go very deep, but but still, it's one of those. Would you rather have Drake May or would you rather have Danny Dimes?
I mean, I wouldn't want either, but it would be Daniel Jones.
I'm saying if you need someone for your bye week.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying to go
Jones,
out and that's mainly a bye week type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, the top 16 or so quarterbacks are taken,
mm-hmm.
depending upon how deep of a league you're in.
Yeah.
So next up, we've got how did we do? How did we do?
1 and 2. Yeah. Well, one dynasty league, not against Oz. He put like 200.
Yeah, a little over 200 on you.
It got so bad at one point going into Sunday night. He had DK Metcalf on his team, and then I needed DK to have a huge game in my Yahoo league, and he ended up not. But at that point I was like, "You're already going to beat me by a lot, so I don't care if it's more. Just I need this in another league." So
right, and I was playing against DK in another one, so I didn't want him to score because I was already winning our game.
Yep. And then last night watching the Chiefs Saints, I had Kareem Hunt, and my opponent who was already up by.
You had Kareem Hunt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. I had Kareem Hunt, and my opponent had Kamara, and he was already up by like 9 points going into that game. So at first I was like, "Oh, there's no way." And then in the I think it was like their first drive for the Chiefs, Kareem scored.
Right.
And he should have had 3 touchdowns. That was so frustrating to watch. Them try and get real cute with a play action quick slant to Juju, where if Mahomes had given it to Kareem, he would have walked into the end zone. It was one, almost like an RPO.
Yep.
But there was no R. It was just PO. Pass option.
Just a
That
pass
was
option.
it. Yeah. And tried to throw a quick slant. Juju knocked it up, and then the D lineman ran it back like 50 yards or something like that. So, I mean, it was a cool play to watch, but needing points out of Kareem Hunt was very, very frustrating.
The other cool play to watch was the lateral from Kelsey.
Yeah, they asked Andy Reid at halftime if that was planned or if they'd rehearsed it, and he said that I guess Travis does that all the time in practice.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, whatever. It worked.
Well, yeah,
it worked.
and he knows on 3rd and
Yeah.
15 or 22 or whatever that play.
Mhm.
Actually, I think it was 3rd and 22
Yep.
at the time, and he knew he wasn't going to get close enough to even give them a chance at going for it. So he had to give the ball up, and generally everyone's running toward you.
Mm-hmm.
So getting it out there 10, 15 yards across the field makes total sense.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. People thought it was scripted because Pirine was, step for step, right with him, looking at him, before he did it. So that's why people are like, oh, that was, kind of looked scripted.
And Pirine probably was thinking, well, we've done this in practice, so
he likes
might
to-
as well be available.
likes to do dumb shit
Well,
like this.
he
but
did. Yeah, he did the same thing in the playoff game
Mhm.
to, who was that? No longer with the team. The wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney.
Yep.
On the one that got called back,
Mhm.
and he just it's something that it looks like he's willing to take the chance
Yep.
and make something happen.
Mhm.
So how did I do? I am now, unfortunately, my perfect record is broken. I am 14-1, and I think that the whole idea of people, things happening for a reason.
Mhm.
It happens. So you've heard me talk about Karen, and Karen is usually misplaying her team. Karen beat me. I lost to Karen.
Yeah.
That was my, in the league one of the 2 leagues I won last year. So I am now 4-1, still in first place. The other 2 leagues I'm 5-0, first place in both. Well, tied for first with Honcho in our dynasty.
Yep.
And I'm only ahead of him because I've scored more points over the 5 weeks, all without CMC and AJ Brown. So I'm happy.
AJ Brown sounding like he will be back. They're
Yeah.
expecting Brown and Devonta Smith back for the upcoming week 6 here. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm playing in my 32-year league against a team that has both of those 2.
wow.
And also a couple other guys coming off a bye. It's not looking like I'll go 6-0, but you never know.
Yep.
I mean, on any given Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to our injuries. Nico Collins, hamstring injury, unknown how long that might affect him.
Yeah.
Happened right at the end of his long touchdown.
Yeah, it was almost like he was running a little too hard and pulled up a little. But I did look earlier because this time of the season, starting to look at other teams. Maybe working some trades. Trying to find anywhere that it might be able to take advantage and package and upgrade at a position. And I was looking at the manager with Nico, and I mean he's not going to give him up. But I was reading there was an update on Yahoo that they're saying he's week to week.
Right.
So it just. But they also have had Joe Mixon, who's been day to day.
Right.
Then week to week with that ankle, and they're not now. There was a new update with him too that said they weren't sure when he's going to be back. So, could be the same thing with Nico. And I mean, and he's the number 1 wide receiver in the league. I don't know, maybe not after
I think even,
easy still.
yeah.
I was gonna say even with Jamar Chase's gigantic game, but
yeah, it's
I mean he
close.
started slow, just Chase did, but so you got the number one receiver in the league right now. You're gonna take your time. They're winning games. They're coming up against New England this next week, which they should be able to handle with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell and
Yeah, but
Cam Akers, whoever.
Drake Mays.
That defense is horrible. Defense is horrible.
Next up, we've got Devon Achane. He had a concussion protocol.
Yeah, pretty early in that game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, which gave the rookie quite a few carries.
Yeah, Raheem was it Mostert? Yeah, Mostert was back too, I believe.
Yeah, Mostert was back, but Jalen Wright got a lot of...
Yeah, Mostert had a pretty good stat line as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, so it's going to be the same, more of the same, where if Achane's out, it'll be Wright and Mostert. The typical Miami.
They're on their bye, so...
Okay, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, they're on their bye this week, so it's entirely possible that
he'll be back.
Devon will be back by the time.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Aaron Jones. Hip injury fairly early in the game.
Yeah.
And that coupled with a horrible game by Sam Darnold,
Mm-hmm.
you thought that they would lose, but good old Van Ginkel takes one to the house on a pick six. And
well, that was one of the 3 interceptions by Aaron, and Aaron looked bad, and then it started to rain pretty heavily in the second half of that game there. So I saw Garrett Wilson slip a couple.
Wait a
times.
second, it rains in London?
Yeah, just a bit.
Didn't know that.
So yeah, I mean Jones, he ties into that offense because he's so efficient that it opens everything up. Whereas you got Ty Chandler, who's not a terrible running back, but he's not Aaron Jones, so defenses can key in a little bit more. They're not having to put so many guys in the box to try and contain, and do all these other things. They can, play a little more aggressive on the back end, and obviously that affected them, in the second half. Seemed like they couldn't do anything. And the Jets' pass defense is good.
Well,
I just Sauce getting,
Sauce got eaten.
Dude could have made a little luau skirt with all the flags he was getting.
Yeah. I mean, he had several. This is where I picked Justin Jefferson as my play of the week, and had it not been for all of those penalties, Jefferson probably would have had 150 yards receiving. But none of those 25-yard interference and the holds and everything else, none of that counts for anything. So he ended up, and for Sauce to go out there and say, well, I'm the greatest DB there is. No, he's not. Because every time we've seen it, when Jair covers Jefferson, Jefferson comes away without much. Yeah. And Sauce couldn't cover him. So I'm not a big, well, first of all, any of the good DBs toot their own horn, and every one of them thinks that they're the best.
That is true.
And I kind of hate that thing. It's like I was always taught, act like you've been there before. And so many of these guys make fools of themselves on the field. Yeah. So Jones, they're on bye this week. So again, he's got the help of an extra week. It's hard to say if he'll be back in a week. Yeah. We'll see. Next up, we've got Derek Carr, an oblique injury throwing the ball day to day. And I think that's going to be at least a couple weeks.
Yeah, he got late in the game, got hit as he threw it and came down, and as he rolled over, he grabbed for that, kind of love handle area. And then they brought in, I don't even know the guys, their second stringer's name. Hayner. I had no idea who that guy was, and they got,
And you still don't.
Yeah, you still don't. So makes you wonder if Carr misses time, if we're going to see maybe Spencer Rattler. We'll see. I mean, they really don't have any other options. I mean, I doubt you're going to bring somebody in. You're just going to...
Maybe they trade for who was there?
Jameis. That would be funny.
Yeah.
Because Deshaun Watson sucks, and for whatever reason, Stefanski, his IQ dropped by 80 points since last season. You know, I mean, he was like coach of the year because they had 4 different quarterbacks and were winning games and looking good. And
now they've got one quarterback and he stinks.
Deshaun, and he sucks, and so they're not making any changes. But so the Derek Carr one, obviously that hurts. You know, your Olave and Shaheed. I think Kamara will still be fine because I think they're gonna just use him even more in the passing game. You know, that was his recipe last season. I mean, he had that one game where he had like 13 receptions for like 31 yards or something crazy like that. So, yeah. But
next up, we've got Aaron Rodgers. He has an ankle issue day to day. I heard he was going to go smoke a little ayahuasca, and he'll be back by...
Find himself,
and he won't be back for practice, but he'll be back for the game because he doesn't like to practice.
Yeah. Yeah, he like, when it happened, I was watching it, and when it happened, it looked like the knee went and the ankle at first, and I was texting my group chat. It says, well, that's a career. And then
that's a wrap.
And then, you know, the next play, there was a flag, or next 2 plays, there was a flag, and it got him like in the red zone, and then he was about to go into the blue tent on the sideline, and then turned around, grabbed his helmet, and limped back out there so that he could be the hero. And
well, of course. So next up, we've got Zach Moss, ankle day to day.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Brown they've both been good,
right?
But Chase Brown over the last like 2 weeks has looked a lot better. You know, that was a very entertaining, very fruitful fantasy game between the Bengals and the Ravens.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was playing against that Jamar Chase guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
And that was in Karen, against Karen. Karen had him.
You know, that guy that doesn't deserve a contract, but whatever.
Let's not get into that because, you know, you have a contract.
Yep.
You have a contract right now. And this is, you know, that going into football, that you're signed to a 4 or a 5 year contract. There's no arguing it. There's a lot of complaining.
Yeah, I mean, but you can argue and complain, and a lot of times if you are one of those top couple guys, you're going to get your money. I mean, look what happened with Dallas and CeeDee Lamb. You know, they initially didn't want to pay him, and then that's Jerry Jones. Well, yes, but they kept holding out and trying to get him to lower his price, and the whole time CD was like, nope, I'm at this number. And they came back, you know, coming back in under a little bit, and finally they're like, how about this number? And he goes, yeah, I'll do that. You know, the one that I've been saying for 3 months. Can I get back to practice now? So, yeah.
Take out an insurance policy on yourself and get into practice.
Yeah.
You know, you have money. It's not like they haven't been paying you millions of dollars.
Yes.
I'm not saying multiple millions, but you've made millions of dollars.
Yep.
And especially being first round picks. Mm-hmm. By year 4, you're probably in the 6 to 10 million range.
Yeah.
So, I get there are people out there that are making 25 or 30 million at your position. Play out your contract. You know, that's what I'm going to say.
Yep.
Next up, we've got Josh Allen. Apparently, he had a head injury, and he's day-to-day, but he returned.
Yeah, that one was kind of weird because I think initially they said it was like a chest injury, and then they switched to a head injury, and, you know, I think, a little, I can't think of the term. Basically, it sounds like the Bills kind of knew it was a head injury, and we're like, well,
played it down a little
player, bit. Blah blah, just get it back out there, kind of thing. You know, so we'll see if anything pops up, if the NFL is going to poke around a little bit, and, you know, see if they can't get some of the money back that they're paying these guys with a fine. But who knows?
Yeah.
So
next up, we've got David Njoku. knee injury, had just come back from an injury, and he'll be getting an MRI. May have gotten it already by now, but didn't see anything on it, so he's a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Browns' offense. Amari Cooper's one of the, besides obviously Devontae, because we know that he's demanded to get traded, or essentially that's what he wants. Amari Cooper's like the number 2 on the list of wide receivers that's probably gonna get dealt.
Oh, it wasn't Romeo Dobbs?
I wish, because if he's gonna whine about being, he's got the most playing time and like second in targets on the team or something like that, just because they haven't amounted to anything. I don't know. Run your routes a little better.
Catch the ball.
Make some moves.
It's like Dontavian Wicks. You want to be the man. Catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, look at Jaden Reed. Dude catches the ball.
Right.
He puts up monster stat lines.
Yeah. Did you see his comment?
No, I don't.
He said, "Yeah, love sitting there," and he goes, "Reed down there. I'm just going to throw the ball up."
Yep. Yeah, the effort. He's down there somewhere.
Yeah. Which was on that 52-yard
triple covered. Yeah.
Yeah, where if the guy who ran past it would have actually turned and looked, could have knocked it away easily or picked it off. But next up, we've got Xavier Leggett, shoulder injury. Should be a leg injury in Leggett. Shoulder injury. He's day to day. He's seeing a little bit more playing time.
Yeah, he was a guy that if you missed on the Dontavian Wicks sweepstakes, whether you fab or waiver
sweepstakes.
Well, that's what it was.
Came out and
I was one of those victims. But he had 13 targets the week before, and the yardage and the 2 touchdowns. So.
And instead,
Leggett was the number 2 guy.
Yeah. Instead, all of those went to Tucker Kraft.
Yeah.
Who, guess what? Caught the ball.
Yep. Leggett was kind of one of the next 2 to 3 guys in the waiver wire that you were going after because of how well really Andy Dalton had been playing and the Panthers have been playing. So you were kind of hoping it was going to carry through, but they came out and kind of laid a dud, and Chicago actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
There is still a little bit of the stink that it is Carolina. But it's like, it was kind of a different team after they brought let Dalton take over. So,
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Last up, we have Ramondre Stevenson, leg injury, but he returns. So more than likely, there's little to no impact.
Yeah, he was the Gerard Mayo head coach of the Patriots said, well, Antonio Gibson's our starter this week. And Gibson had like 1 or 2 carries.
And then Ramondre was in.
And he had a pretty decent game.
Yeah, I struggle to... you listen to what coaches say.
Yep.
And you can't listen to what coaches say because coaches are full of hot air most of the time. And it's almost like, I wonder if he had Stevenson on his, or he was trying to trade for him in his fantasy league. So he said that Gibson's going to start, so he traded Gibson for Stevenson.
Yeah, maybe. NFL might have to look into that.
Yeah, well, as long as it's not for money.
I was going to say, if there's money involved.
Yeah.
But.
So moving on to our studs, we've got Kirk Cousins plus 22.11. He was 42 of 58, 509 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Had himself quite a game.
Yes, he did. Like I said, I think we commented on it. I thought it was funny that apparently it was like Matt Ryan night. And he was commentating or, part of one of the crews there for halftime or whatever. So I thought it was kind of funny that he broke Matt Ryan's record on Matt Ryan night.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
In the Mercedes Dome. Or
whatever, he has found a wide receiver.
He's got
Darnell
2
Mooney.
of them.
Yeah, but he likes Darnell Mooney.
Yep. Yeah, he does. Mooney, we saw in Chicago, flashes of it in Chicago. He's super fast and can run down the field. The one knock on Mooney, talking to my coworker that's a Bears fan, is the drops. Which Mooney had a costly drop in that game. And then like I said, my coworker, he'd be wide open. Kind of shades of MVS, wide open, and it would just hit him in the hands and fall to the ground.
I still see, a pass attempt to MVS in the league, and he never comes away with it.
No.
He usually gets one pass toward him, and he misses it.
Yep.
Or it's off target or whatever, but more than likely he misses it.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Jamar Chase, plus 20.88. He had 10 receptions on 12 targets, 193 yards, and 2 tutties. Single-handedly beat me.
Yeah. I mean, and he's getting long touchdowns too.
Yeah.
So he's getting those, that extra point or however, whatever you do for 40 plus or whatever yardage plus, So he's getting that little bit of a multiplier on a lot, basically every touchdown he scored.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously, like I said, that was a very fruitful fantasy game. I had T. Higgins in that one in my Yahoo league. He had 2 touchdowns, but his were from 3 yards and then 5 yards.
Right.
So, still a great stat line. I'm not complaining.
I'll take those.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. But, Chase is, now that he's back and Higgins is back, Burrow's clicking, they got Chase Brown, Zach Moss. I mean, they're starting to ramp up here. Like I said, it's almost like the true preseason finally ended for the league, for all the veterans and those guys.
And maybe that's
out and,
maybe that's the best way to do it is to lose those first 4 games and work your way into playing shape and connections and everything, and then by week 17, 18. You're on top of your game.
Yeah,
and you haven't really played hard.
Except you're in Cincinnati's position at 1-4.
Yep.
Playing, obviously playing a really good game, and they're 1-4. So they've got quite a hole they've got to dig themselves out of if they even want to make playoffs.
Right. Next up, we've got Tank Bigsby plus 20.8. He had 1 catch on 1 target for 28 yards, 13 rushes, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think this is going to end up being a pretty even split with him and Etienne. I mean, Etienne has not been what he had been, like even last year. He was the big run guy. He was their, kind of like Kyron Williams, where he's gotten 95% of all, snaps and touches. He was the workhorse. And,
right.
Bigsby was kind of a bit of a, he was kind of the butt of a lot of jokes last season because he came in and looked bad, and I think he fumbled a handful of times, and they kind of just phased him out. But they've got some faith in him. Obviously, they're giving him 13 carries is pretty healthy. He ripped a big long run, and then there's been some whispers that I've been seeing that. I don't think they would because I think they love Etienne there, but there's been some whispers that with how well Bigsby's playing, they might move off of Etienne and trade him somewhere. So
could be. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, trade him while his value is high.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Joey Burrow, plus 19.54, 30 of 39 passing, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah.
Those are numbers.
Yeah.
Not quite as good as Kirk Cousins, but
1 more touchdown.
Yeah. And 17 yards more.
Yeah, like I said, I mean the Bengals offense is clicking. Their defense is not good, so that will hopefully necessitate big stat lines out of those their top players. So hopefully they can stay hot on the offensive side of the ball and keep delivering big stat lines.
Yep. Next up, we've got Tucker Kraft, plus 17.19. He had 4 catches on 5 targets, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those was just a beautiful catch and run.
Yep.
I mean, I believe he's leading the league in yards after catch for tight ends.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, tight ends have been horrible so far.
Yeah, yeah. This may be your new number 1.
It could be. I mean, you look at it, he's super involved, and he scored last week too, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So I mean, again, in this tight end climate that we're in, I mean, I've
Right,
got
and
him
it-
in a dynasty, and I've got Isaiah Likely, and I put Isaiah Likely out on the trade block just to see if anybody take a shot on him, and I could maybe get some draft capital or something. But I've got faith in Tucker Kraft as long as he can stay on the field.
Right.
I mean,
I sat Pitts against you
Yeah.
this past week after he threw up the donut last week.
Yep.
And I thought after that game, oh boy, was that a stupid thing to do.
Mhm.
And then Tucker Kraft came through for me.
Big time. Yeah.
So it, turned out better for me, I guess.
Yep.
So moving on to our duds, we've got Debo minus 10.91. He had 1 catch on 3 targets for 11 yards, 3 rushes for 9 yards.
Yeah, that's a really bad line. I mean, Kittle had a good game, and that's just the way the San Francisco offense goes. If one guy, Ayuk had a really good game too. Yeah, so I'm forgetting about Ayuk, but
Yeah, he was darn near a stud.
Yeah, if 1 or 2 of the other options in San Francisco have good games, whoever that third one is, it's a really bad game.
Yeah. Well, and Jordan Mason didn't have a good game. I believe he was one of the next people after Purdy on the duds list.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's going to be, next week. Could he be one of the top 5 fantasy players on the week? Yeah. Again, it's such as the San Francisco offense when it comes to fantasy. It's just whoever's, the target.
Well, it won't be Jake Moody.
No.
He's injured. Next, we've got Deshaun Watson minus 10.9, 15 of 28 passing, 125 yards and a touchdown, 3 rushes for 14 yards. This is
horrible.
becoming a normal stat line for him.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's going to have to they're going to just have to eat that entire contract and they're just going to have to, they have to. Nobody's going to give them anything for him. Nobody's going to offer to take on some of that contract.
No.
I mean, it's going to be a Denver Russell Wilson, but worse.
Yeah, much worse.
Where Denver's like, fine, we'll eat, what was it, like $80 million or something like that for Russell,
right
so
now,
he wasn't on the team.
Yeah, right now it's at like 170 million or something.
Yeah,
still
because
left on.
they loaded up the back end of the contract because they knew early with all the, I think it might be bad, but I think some of it was maybe they were after they made that trade and gave him that contract. They did that in case he ended up having to do some time and they could void the without having to pay the upfront, and that's why it's so heavy on the back end of the contract. But it was just, I mean, yeah, he's just been
Trading for him was like drafting Jamarcus Russell number 1 overall.
Yeah, he's been bad. That offensive line is horrible, but he creates a lot of his own sacks and pressures, and there's not much else you can say.
Yep.
I think they wish they would have cut Baker at this point.
Yeah, it's a wonder how you do some of that stuff in hindsight 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Devon Achane minus 9.81. He had 1 catch on 1 target for minus 1 yards, 3 rushes, 18 yards, injured early. So that's understandable.
Yep. Yeah, he got the concussion and they yanked him, and I mean that's why he was in the dud. I think he probably would have been a dud, or borderline, for our, the top 5 that we do, for the dud criteria. But I think he would have been would have been still close. I think he would have been off the list, but still close to being on the top duds.
Huh.
Had he even then not gotten injured, because that Miami New England game was ugly.
Yeah, but Mostert put up decent numbers.
I mean, like I said, Achane still isn't the kind of back that you can give 20 carries to every week.
But he was averaging 6 yards per carry on the 3 that he had.
I have a feeling he still would have been bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Sam Darnold, minus 9.35, 14 of 31. 179 yards and an interception, 5 rushes for 11 yards. Like we said, though, he could have ended up with a whole lot more yardage and a bunch of completions had it not been for...
Probably a touchdown.
Yeah, had it not been for interference, holding, interference, and those were just 4 plays on Jefferson.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so and they lost Jones too in that game.
Right.
that like we talked about earlier, he's so efficient. And he's such a threat that defense. You have to respect that and play for that. But when he's not out there, the defense can kind of sit back on their heels and try and just say, hey, beat us through the air. And normally so far this season you don't want to do that against the Vikings, but whether it's playing in London and the rain and everything, just I thought the Jets were going to come back and win that, and then Aaron threw that horrible pass to Mike Williams, who to me looked like he thought he was blocking. I don't know if you watched.
I did not see that.
Yeah, Mike Williams basically on a go route, and Aaron just chucks it, and it literally, like, Mike Williams right at the last second turns, but before that was almost pushing Stephon Gilmore down. And when Gilmore did, that's when he came in and got the pick. Gilmore is basically laying on the ground, but when he threw that, I was like...
Did they call offensive pass interference?
No.
Oh.
I mean, it was like a little more, it was just a physical play with both of them, but watching it, it looked like maybe Mike Williams, he had no idea that ball was coming, right. So it was just a horrible, just a bad pass. And then, of course, Aaron's staring at Mike Williams like, you effing idiot, what are you doing? This isn't my fault.
Of course, it's Aaron Rodgers.
He was doing that game might have been the worst I've ever seen him do that, where he threw a ball that was bad.
He was doing that to Garrett Wilson.
And then he's throwing his hands up, and he's, putting his head to the side, looking at him like, what are you doing? And it's like, dude, you throw the, put the ball where you want it. And,
But again, it's like any sport, any team sport, to sit there and, in a sense, badmouth. You're not necessarily badmouthing, but
it's the body language.
Yeah, to give that kind of attitude toward your teammates, unbelievable, unbelievable.
I think like we talked about with the news, I think that's why Saleh got fired. Is that I think that organization is terrified of Aaron.
Yeah,
and they don't want to upset him because they saw what he pulled in Green Bay.
And they still traded for him.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that I think I feel sorry for Jets fans, because the Jets bring they bring it on themselves. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So next up, we've got Brock Purdy, minus 8.62. He was 19 of 35 passing for 244 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, 4 rushes, 33 yards. Didn't look good.
No, and that was against the Cardinals, right? I believe so. Against Arizona, Arizona's defense is, not very good either, and you struggle like that. But we've seen the San Francisco team, even last year looked unstoppable, and then all of a sudden the Vikings beat them, in San Francisco, and I think at that point was with a backup too. So it's just, I don't know what's going on in San Francisco, if CMC being out really hurts them that much, because like we said, Mason was like next on the list or very close to it. So, but then again, you had Ayuk and Kittle having very good games.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny how this has become an odd year in that you have no idea who's going to blow up, who's going to stink on any given week. Your expectations are here, and they end up way below.
Yeah. I think there's fewer guys that you can be like, all right, they're going to get their points every week this year. Like obviously so far it's been Justin Jefferson.
Brandon Aubrey.
Brandon Aubrey.
It's funny. I'm sitting there. That was the Sunday night game, right? I think it was the Sunday night game. So
it got delayed.
Yeah, by like an hour and a half or whatever. And the very first drive, there he is kicking 55-yarder, and in our league, for 32 years, anything 55 and older over is a 10-point kick.
That's crazy.
And I mean, like I said, I get it when they're at 60.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite get it anymore at 55. Maybe it should be a graded upward from that point. But yeah, boom, 10 points.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he just made my day. Because that's above what they project for him.
Yep.
So, moving on to our waiver wire. Darnell Mooney.
Yeah. I mean,
If he's still available.
like I said, hindsight, I had dropped Mooney in the transaction to pick up Dontavian Wicks after that week.
That worked well for
Hindsight,
you.
shouldn't have done it.
Did Mooney get picked up?
During the game, yes, he got picked up. Like immediately after like his first touchdown, he got picked up.
Yeah, I don't. And we've talked about this. He should be on waivers until Tuesday night.
Yep.
But
yeah, that's just how we do it. You got to pay attention. You got to watch your games.
that's a little much. Yeah, once a game starts, can't drop, can't pick up.
Yeah.
I hate Yahoo, which is why I haven't been in a Yahoo league in decades.
So yeah, like you said, I mean, Kirk loves him some Darnell Mooney. And Drake London obviously blew up. Pitts had a good game. Bijan has been average at best, which has been frustrating because, Bijan may have been, if you were anywhere from pick 3 to 2, even if you were crazy, 2 to 5 would have been in there, and you're getting average numbers.
Well, and in our league, I believe he was either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because it's running back, running back. But you had CMC first out for, so far the whole year.
Yep.
You had either Breece Hall or Bijan.
Yeah, it makes sense, so, I mean, to, the detriment of Bijan Robinson, their aerial attack has been working and probably will continue to work. So.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I mean, again, super involved. Jordan Love.
And again, he may not be available.
Yeah,
but
at this point, probably not. After last week, he probably got picked up.
Probably.
So.
Then we've got your favorite, Charlie Kolar.
Yeah, I mean, I still.
And I was joking with you for the most part, because he's third on the Baltimore depth chart at tight end. Yet it seemed like he was more involved in the game than Andrews was.
Well, it was the same thing for Mark Andrews, where he had one target going into like the fourth quarter. And then Andrews ended up like 4 catches for like 55 yards. So not bad. Especially that's a good game for Mark Andrews this season.
Yeah.
That's a great game for Mark Andrews. Should have had a touchdown on that longer catch that he had, but I think Lamar underthrew it a touch and it allowed the defender to catch up. 3 touchdowns going to the tight end position in Baltimore. None to Mark Andrews, 2 to Likely,
1 to Charlie
Kolar. 1 to Kolar. Have you seen the clip of him in the locker room after the game?
No.
Somebody asked him about, some question, and he's, you got guys like Mark Andrews and Likely and, and Lamar and all this, and he goes, they just forget about the fat white guy running down the middle of the field. The fat white tight end running down
apparently.
the field. So,
next,
to comment on that it's such a mess. For the Ravens, that he truly is just a maybe. I mean, who knows?
Well,
maybe
and
Andrews gets moved. Maybe
Well, and that's the thing.
Likely, I don't know.
Likely was, for lack of a better term, the unlikely person to be the stud tight end on that team.
Yeah.
And Andrews just hasn't either isn't running the routes, isn't being seen, isn't fat enough to be seen.
Yep.
But it's odd to me that you just don't, you're not going with the proven veteran, but sometimes that's not how it works.
Yeah. All right. So that one's I I don't know if I would pick him up, but he'd
Ah.
be on the radar.
Right.
If another week goes by and he's still involved and has
Right.
if he's
That
out on
was
the field
more.
a bunch,
That was more of a joke because I
Yeah.
texted you after he had
Yep.
like 2 or 3 catches, and I'm like, Charlie Kolar is catching, and then he got the touchdown, and I'm like, dude, he's going on the waiver wire list. Next up, we've got Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, I mean, Zamir White was out. Madison and Abdullah had a decent stat line too, but I don't put a whole lot of faith because he was coming out of college. I loved him coming out of college, and then he went to Detroit right away, and then just never, injuries never really panned out. Bye week flyer kind of guy if White misses time.
Right.
So.
And I've heard some talk about Zamir White not, being the guy there.
I don't think he is, but I mean, the injury obviously, opens the door.
Right.
So.
And speaking of injuries, we've got Tyrone Tracy on there.
Yeah. There you go, Nick.
Oh,
wasn't a stud.
He's not a stud,
but he's on the show.
He's the waiver wire. I forgot I didn't look back and see who he mentioned.
Yeah, Nick played him in his league, and like we were talking in our group text. I mean, Nick's receivers are Justin Jefferson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Terry McLaurin, and then somebody else. And I mean, he's been having success with those guys, and he threw Tracy in his flex, and then immediately it was like Eric Gray, their other running back, had like 3 catches for like 40-something yards, and Nick was like, oh no. But, he ended up having they started handing him the ball, and he had a really nice game, especially for a, late week waiver wire pickup, because, that was coming down late in the week if Singletary was going to... I mean, he was doubtful, but, they still were like, oh, there's still a small chance. So, if he hasn't been picked up, if Singletary misses time...
Singletary's supposed to be back this week,
supposedly.
But
even then, that, or if you're the Singletary manager, need a handcuff,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's... I will... Loser of the week, I'm going to put myself there. Because I lost to Karen. I badmouthed Karen. Karen, I'm sorry. Karma bit me in the butt. Never do that again to you, Karen.
Still, please set your lineup. I'm not in any of your leagues. Whatever, but set your lineup.
Set your lineup. That's all we've got for this week. Hope you have a chance to listen or to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm Ozzy.
I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
Good night.